Hey everybody, welcome back. A lot to go over even on a quiet day. We can see how we acted right here where we're just forming that doji right under this level. Take a look at this before we drill into this on a more shorter time frame where we can really get in there. But all we did was really have this doji right under here ahead of the ADP non-farm payrolls, which will be out at 8:15. We had the jobs numbers that came out today at 8.7. That was 9.3 is where it's supposed to come in, was at 8.7. We'll see what happens, but look at this. Now, we talked about this on the pre-market today. And what I was getting at was just you want to watch these levels, like 4,600, unable to get through. Watch this wick up here, unable to get through. We've been fighting that wick over and over again, trying. Got a whole full day over it again. So that 4580 continues to be our nemesis. We talked about this before the private clouds, and really what we're watching is we're just watching it turn yellow, and its inability to rise over it is definitely an issue for us. Look at this on the Nasdaq, and you can see exactly what it did since it flipped, and it's just staying yellow. Now you're fighting to try and get above it, and you were above it for the majority of the day. We just have to see how this plays out. What's really fascinating is as poorly as we would think the Nasdaq acted, we're starting to see small caps actually break below that private cloud. And now what's it doing? It's just sitting there. Eventually, if it stays here, it will turn yellow. But it's really interesting because you think that we're rotating, and we are, but we're rotating back again. Now, I'll explain what I mean by rotating back again. Here we are with all the indexes, or the majority of indexes that I really want to look at right now in sectors. And we can see the Qs here, XLK, XLC, and what we're doing is just going back to 23. And what I was showing people is how to just utilize this on shorter time frame. Let's go to a 5-minute, and what we're going to do with it is just put it on regular and get rid of the pre and the post data. And you go back to the 4th. All right, let's just go to the 5th. Now, look at what's happening. XLK is leading again. Now, if we go back to the beginning of December, we'll see that we were nowhere near there as far as leading. In a very short period of time, we have a new leader emerging. And I think that's really important for us to note. Even if you go back and take a look at this. I mean, this is early November. You can see where we're at right here and see where XLK is in the middle of this. It's not even in the top 3. You have XBI, XME, XLF, XLY. All of these are ahead of the XLK. But now look, XLK is leading everything today. And what are we doing? We're seeing rotation over and over again. While we're watching the indexes not go anywhere and tread water underneath, they're going somewhere. They are moving. There is action going on. What do we do about it? Well, we talked about this again in the pre-market today, actually the public one, and we went through it in the private as well, and we had some nice trades today. But look at this buying that's coming in at Apple, like right off the rip. I don't know that this is just going to stop. This is a lot of buying that went on today. It doesn't even make sense to even look at the volume. You know it's above average just by looking at it. And I mean, we can always drop in a VWAP, but you should be able to tell just by looking at this chart where you're at, right? I mean, it should be pretty glaring what happened. People like to say, I say that a lot, but I mean it. When you look at it, look at Microsoft. This was a great trade of ours. We did this off the open. This is a pretty different kind of trade on how to trade off of VWAP, but we actually got it right here. And when it did this little move, and I'm going to walk through it if people are interested, but we were able to capitalize on this and pull $4 or $5, I think, out of this trade today at max level. Here was the first trim. That would have been $3. And then there was another level up here at 371. I'm not going to walk through it now. There's so much to go over. And then what we were looking for was that 347 number. We never really got there. But there were plenty of times that you could have just pulled money out of this over and over again. But if you're interested in that, just comment below. It was a really simple trade based upon these wicks and how to figure this out. I can show you the entry, exit. I can actually play the whole thing out. I think we have it. We actually did. I did it live, so I can play that whole thing out. I want to show you another trade later in this video, but I want to get to the point of this. Rotation, rotation, rotation. That's what you're doing here. We talked about this. We talked about this Dragonfly this morning in the pre-market live. Again, the public one, it's free. And we went through this and said, you know what? This is kind of setting up here. We kind of want to pay attention to this, and you could see how it acted. So that's the kind of stuff that you want to look for. You want to look for these reversal bars. When you start memorizing these reversal bars and you see them, it's automatic. You don't even think about it. You just act. So this is definitely something that I would be paying attention to again tomorrow. Put in the simplest of indicators, and you can see the battleground, 22. Now, this is why I always use the 12, the 22, and the 55. And you should always use what you're comfortable with. But when I utilize these levels, I get way less false positive readings, way less false positive readings than people get. I can give you a great example of this. I'm going to zoom in on this so that you can see this really clearly. This is NVDA, the daily. So let's say that you're a trader and you're watching NVDA yesterday and it breaks your 50-day moving average, which is exactly what that is. And you can see that right there. There's the 50 and there's the 55. Now, if you can see this, what happens? It breaks your level. You might not even use the close. You might just say, oh, I broke the 50. Therefore, I need to get out. I'm using the 55. There's more to it than this, but I'm using the 55. I think you got within a couple millimeters of my number. And then where's it do today? Oh, it's going to break the 50 again today. I knew it. I better short. Never got to my number. I get a lot less false positive readings than people that use the 50-day. It's really that simple. I don't know how else to explain it. I get a lot less false signals. If you look at my signals when they go, they're real and they stay. If you use the same things that everybody else is using, you shouldn't be surprised if you get the same results. I can just leave it at that. What else did we see today that was interesting? I thought this was pretty fascinating, that KRE selling down and people are a little concerned. I think we're getting a little exhausted, and I want to spend some time on this. I think we're getting a little exhausted in here where we're seeing TNX coming down 417. Not exhausted in the bond buying. Our bond buying trades are going great. Again, if you've been following along, and I know for those that are in the community, we're in here around 85 bucks. Now you're at 94. I think you almost hit 95 today. Yeah, you missed it by 30 cents. So, we did very well in this trade. I think we're up. What's the 20-year up? Are you up over 15%? Yeah, you're up 11% in a very short period of time. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. 11% the 20-year bond in a month. Wow. Those things are on fire. So if you look at something like this bond trade's going great, but I thought this was fascinating. As the bond market was actually rallying, the dollar was selling off, which just shows signs of exhaustion, really, doesn't it? Right? It doesn't mean that trade's busted. It just might be signs of exhaustion. And I think that's a pertinent thing to look at. Let's make this a 200 and see where we're lying on that. Well, there we go. Here, I do appreciate your comments about this as well. That as far as the editing and just getting it out there, and I do appreciate your sharing. You'd be surprised the people that reach out from the sharing. So if we just take a look here, you could see this level right in here. And look what we did. And I think that's really important. You're back over the 200. Do I want to be there? Not really. But remember what we said earlier in the month. Once you have a golden cross, which you have right here, resistance is the 200-day moving average. Now, you've broken it, and you're not breaking it anymore. Now you're back over. So it is possible that you hold in here. Now, I don't know what that's going to do to the equity markets because, quite frankly, with the dollar rallying, it really didn't do much. ES really didn't go anywhere. Now, you have non-farm payrolls this week. You have ADP tomorrow. ADP is different. Remember, ADP non-farm payrolls is different. It goes off of the average of 30 people in ADP, where non-farm payrolls is all the companies. But you look at that and go, well, I always say it, right? We always talk about this. Dollar does what? Dollar rises, and then bonds will rally, right? Meaning yields will drop, and equity prices go higher. Well, dollar rose, bonds are rallying, yields dropping. Equity prices going higher, not so much. So what does that mean to us? It means that we're probably a little exhausted. I'll show you something else I was showing people in the room today. So I just want to show this ahead of time. You can see this right here at this 11:36, and that's today, where it says today, and it's just me typing, explaining what's going on. 11:30 was the excuse to sell the market. You had 42-day paper that was sold. They didn't like it, and that's when the market sold off. We're just marking the levels and the bear flags that are out there at the time. But I show this, and what I was pointing at was I actually had a bunch of puts, and what I did was I just went long stock against the puts. And then you come down here, and then what do? Down, 1, 2, 3, up, breaks. So if you know these, I would strongly recommend you learn this particular candlestick pattern. There's going to be a lot in this video that you're going to want to watch again, and you're going to want to probably replay it, but I'll keep it short because I'm going to pack it in. But down, 1, 2, 3, up, testing that part, comes break down, breaks below there, boom. These rising 3, falling 3 patterns are deadly. They don't always have the biggest move, but they are probably the most accurate pattern out there. And that makes sense because there's 5 parts to it. So if you don't have all 5 parts, it's not going to work. It's not going to have the same effect in this. So you might want to learn that pattern. I do very well off that pattern. But that was pretty clear to me. That's what I was talking about up here. Or was it? I started to say it. And so I just wanted the puts to do what they were going to do, and I left the puts alone, and I didn't stay with the puts. But what I was getting at was this. At the time, when we start looking for signs of exhaustion, you start looking everywhere. So here's Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's rising. And this is another great way that you can use this relative strength. Here's Bitcoin rising. At the time Bitcoin's rising, what's going on here? And it happens right around here at 12:30, 1 o'clock. All right, we have Mara dropping. We have MicroStrategy's dropping. They're still up on the day, but they're nowhere near where they were. Mara was outperforming, right? Riot was outperforming Bitcoin. Coin was outperforming Bitcoin. Everything was outperforming Bitcoin except for MicroStrategy's, which is crazy because that's the one that owns it at a discount to where Bitcoin is. But there we go again thinking. So best to just act. So here we are and we see how this is going on. And what's falling out of bed? Coin, Riot, MicroStrategy's, Mara. Bitcoin's still going higher. This is a clear sign of exhaustion, guys. If you're in these names and they're not rising when the underlying asset, just like if you were long, let's say you were long copper and the underlying asset all of a sudden starts rising and your copper stocks are going down. Think of like the gold and gold miners, same thing, and you're doing it. That's a clear indication to Amityville Horror and get out. I mean, you got to get out of that kind of stuff. You don't want to be in there. So keep that in mind. I thought that this was an important lesson. I have one more that I really want to go over with you. And again, 815, non-farm payrolls. If you are on the wait list, look for the newsletter. The majority of them will either be out today or tomorrow for the next 12 hours of your invite. And then I'm shutting it down. Someone made me laugh and said, you've been saying 12 hours forever. They said it on the pre-market call today. They're right. Demand was pretty big. So I'm letting everybody cycle through because I speak to everybody individually that joins the community. And I'm only one person. GME, I do want to go over this. It did not break. And I want to do this before we go through the software names that came out tonight. GME, it didn't break. I have puts married to this, 16.5s. We'll see how this acts tomorrow. I'm up enough in it that it doesn't matter. With the married puts, I simply can't lose money. But you're going to want to watch this tomorrow. This is going to be something that's going to be highly watched. And then, of course, you have ASAN, which is down after hours about $2, and you can see that right here and where earnings are. I thought they were fairly decent. At the time of recording this, I don't have the conference call, and I'm going to be listening to the conference calls tonight in between other conference calls that I have to do. So this one's going to be short and sweet to the point, but I want to really walk through something. So one thing that I see people do and do a really poor job of is trading after hours. Now, MDB, we did not do a poor job of trading this after hours tonight, and I want to show you how to do this in like 3 or 4 really quick steps so that you are prepped. First, you need a list every single morning of who's going to have earnings that night. Okay. Then you look for demarcation lines. So let me show you what I mean by that. You pick out the ones that are going to have the biggest moves. Okay. And then you look for demarcation lines. And what demarcation lines are they are areas where you're going to have support and you're going to have resistance. So for us, very clearly where they were, 370, 397, 58, and 420, right? I had them marked off because I wanted to know where they were. But people have been playing this stock forever in the room. So clean these off and get into it so you can see this a little bit clearer. So once that news comes out, I usually know it, and then somebody in the room will post it. And I believe somebody in the room posted it as well. And they beat earnings and they exceeded expectations. I'm going to have to get it. I didn't want to because of time's sake, but I'm going to have to pull out the stool. So the important thing about the stool here for a moment is everybody's focused on the technical. If you know how to read a balance sheet, and you can read a balance sheet in about 2-3 seconds, which you should be able to read that report that comes out in 2-3 seconds and say good, bad, or what's it missing. Good, bad, or what's it missing? Once you're able to do that, you have an edge over everybody else that's playing after hours. It's actually like they're playing checkers, you're playing chess. It's really that strong of a differential move. And so since we know what to look for in that room, we know what we're doing. Now, doesn't mean it's always going to work, of course. There are nuances after earnings that you might not be aware of. MDB, even though they raised guidance, there might have been a margin issue. Their revenue mix could have been off, and I don't know that. You always have to assume that you're wrong, and you always have to have a stop. You might want to hear that again. We're not going to worry about the macro here. We're going to look at the technical, but we're going to look at the fundamental, and we're going to make our decision off the fundamental. We're going to make our entry off the fundamental, but near a technical level. So what we were able to do, and I posted this, I'll show you it in a second, but what I was able to do right here was enter. Why was I able just to buy blindly into that level? Because I know that that's a support level. And I know exactly that if I like that, what that had to say, that the person here that supported it last time, they might like what it had to say. Support and resistance work because that's where buyers and sellers are. I mean, it's not rocket science, guys. So you come down to this level and you hold, right? All right, then all I have to do is very simple. Buying into here, I got 401 or something, right into it, and I'm buying into it. I'm getting positive slippage. I'm going to walk through this on the Microsoft trade tomorrow as well, discussing how to get positive slippage on your entries. I think there'll be an interest. Comment below on that, but I do think there'll be an interest in that. You're buying into the fear. I'm buying everyone's fear, right? It sounds awful when you say it like that, but that's what you're doing. You're buying everyone's fear right in here. And then when it pops over, you make the higher high, boom, you're set. Your stop goes right here. trades on. Where are you getting out? I don't know. Maybe you should know where your resistance level is before you get in something. 420, there it is, boom. You get over, it looks like it's going to rip. I sell into it. Why? We can get what is called positive slippage. I see another t-shirt idea right there. Once you're selling into that and then it starts breaking lower low, that's enough. What am I waiting for? And I just close the rest of it. And let me just show you this. I think it's really important to show these. 409, you can see bought, MDB, low a day, stop, after hours, stop, meaning low a day. That's how we're doing it. And this is just other notes. And then you can just see me pointing out what I'm doing. When I trimmed, I always put out when I trim, that everything's timestamped so they can follow along. And the reason I do that after hours, usually after hours, I'll show exactly what I'm doing. I try not to do formal alerts. If you can't trade during the day, you sure as heck shouldn't be trading pre and post. And then when I dump the rest, $17, thank you very much. It's a lot easier to trade if you mark your levels off. I'm always trying to show people not only what I do, but that they know how to do it and that they can utilize this and then they can profit from it. Again, this is learning a skill set, guys. There are no gurus. Okay, this is just repetitive nature. It's no different than any other skill set that you learn. There's just levels to it. That's it.